So just by the sheer way that I felt about the last episode, this has to be a better episode than that one, right? Please? Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. We're on episode 5 of the Mayfair Witches called The Thrall. Um, look, no bones. If you've been following along, I was not a fan of the last episode, to the point where I just was not paying attention. This episode does not have that problem. This episode does have me at attention because it starts in a way that is jarring to the system. So you kind of automatically start paying attention until you catch up with what it is. It is very much a battle episode, which for my folks who are watching the Last of Us series videos, that also is a battle episode, which means it takes place pretty much in one location with a smaller amount of characters. Cost be damned for this one. This one was for dramatic effect, as we're trying to show the rise of Rowan sort of becoming at one with her powers. That's what this entire episode really is about. What I've learned with the Mayfair Witches is that this show operates as if you were supposed to have read the book, which is a terrible way for a show to operate or act. Like, you have to have had some type of book knowledge to fully enjoy or fully invest in this. And I don't think that's what makes a good show. I think I'll use this as an example, but The Last of Us right now, most of the people, a big chunk of the people that are watching that series, because it keeps growing in ratings every week, never played the video game, but they love the show. And they don't need to have played the video game to sort of get an understanding of this world. This is operating as if you do. But what's crazy about it is, from the few book readers that do respond, this isn't also following the books. So you're kind of pissing off both worlds here. So I'm not entirely sure who this series is for. I think if you're trying to make a good television series, there's a lot of things that are being left to the wayside that you kind of just need to keep the audience engaged. This episode, I will say, does a little bit better job of handling those. We get another flashback episode with Suzanne doing her midwife stuff. This time she's delivering a baby to Flory. But the baby comes out with winged hands. The dad is none too happy about that. He starts seeing all the powder and spells, well, not spells, but all the powder and ingredients that she sort of has on her table. I was like, "You are a witch. You're a demon. Something's wrong. You did this to my wife." And then we see that there's a witch finder in the middle of town, sort of casting disparaging remarks against witches or anybody who feels that they are along that line. And you can sort of tell that in that the father called him in, made a call to get them in there, and he's sort of staring a hole into Suzanne. And so this is sort of what started the hunting of witches at this point in time in the past. We then come back to the present. And we are in a situation that does not make sense originally. You start off with Rowan and Cyprian in bed, canoodling, having post-coitus night, and Cyprian saying, "Hey, I'm going to go make some breakfast." And then we see that scene happen 2 more times, back to back. You can tell then that they're on a loop. And each time that they return, Cyprian is in a worse way. And what we come to learn is that another of the many powers that we can see that Lasher has, that outside of book readers, you guys may be aware of this, I have no clue. We're just getting, he can do anything. He's becoming pretty much omnipotent. But he's got them in a loop in the Mayfair Witches' home, in Carlotta's home, because he doesn't want Cyprian to get help. He wants Cyprian to die, because he can see that Cyprian has fallen in love with Rowan and he can't have him around. So he's like, cool. So he keeps putting them on a loop where they aren't aware. Memories sort of lapse, memories sort of erased. But then Rowan starts sort of getting her faculty, starts putting things together, and trying to find a way out of this trap that Lasher has sort of set. A couple of things that are truth that we do learn, sort of as throwaways, but Rowan does mention that about the guys in her life. She used to date frat boys all the time, but she has sort of a 3-week cap on dating men because she doesn't want to get into the messy stuff or the connection stuff. She is very much closed off. That's just who she is. it's an important character beat. We kind of got that a little bit with the boat guy at the very beginning of the series, but sort of just adds at least some type of layer because we don't really get a lot of Rowan aspects of this. It's more environment and the situations and not so much characters, which I think is why I'm starting to tune out of the show just a bit. But Rowan is looking around, trying to find phones, anything, everything's dead. She's not getting a signal, everything's coming up pretty crappy for her. They both, in their right mind, start to say, hey, we need to get out of here. Cyprian's in a bad way. She can finally see the cut and how it's abscessing and how he's just not healing. Um, they both go to the door, and they say the door's trapped and they can't get out. It's not opening. Cyprian is in a bad way. He can't make it back up the stairs. Rowan makes it back up to get some stuff. Sip is trying to do like a spell or something, or like read the spell that's like locking them into the home. He's basically dying, and then Rowan goes up and it gets a version of Cyprian that is helping. To Visage, obviously, Lasher is playing games with her, but just kind of get her distracted, sort of forget about the bad Cyprian, so that he can kind of get more and more in a bad way. While he is down there, he sees a vision of Stuart Townsend, not to be confused with the actor Stuart Townsend, who played in an Anne Rice movie. Stuart Townsend is the character name. Apparently, he's a big part of the Mayfair Witches books, but he's in the Talamasca. And he's lets him know, like, oh crap, you didn't fall in love with her, did you? You shouldn't fall in love with her. He's not going to like that. And that's when Cyprian realizes that, oh, this is a trap. Like Lasher is trying to remove me from the situation so that he can have you, and he's putting us through this rigmarole. So Rowan comes back down, and he tells her that, and she sort of starts realizing what's happening. And at that point, she calls out to Lasher and says, "I know how to fix this." And she says, "Lasher, release him now. I'll stay here and play whatever crazy game you want with you, but just send him back home." And then Lasher floats through the wall, and is no longer in the house. Then Rowan starts asking, like, what do you want from me? And she goes back upstairs and sees that there's a gown that is laid out on the bed, that clearly Lasher wants her to wear. Like, I want you to get pretty for me. Put some clothes on and come on down. She puts it on, comes down the steps, and Lasher's there, invisible form. No mask this time, just who he is. He says a line, mortal men are fragile, and that no mortal man can contend with the Mayfair woman. Which is interesting because while he is mortal, there is at least something more to Cyprian. But Rowan's like, that's what your definition of love is? Like, that's what you call this? Like, what? Contend? Those are some wild words to use. And then there's a bit of a back and forth. And this is I'm back to my how I felt before. I think Lasher in doses, when he says little, is more entertaining and more fearful and more intoxicating than this. We get a lot of Lasher in this, and it's not good. I'm back on the side of, like, I just don't find him to be villainous or any type of. For this show to work, you've made this guy seem super, like, omnipotent and powerful, but the actor that's playing him is playing him in a way that just feels silly. They go through this back and forth of, like, hey, I know what you want. And just the read of how he says, I want you to dance, or you want to dance, and then I know you want cake, and she eats cake. I get the game that he's playing. He's trying to give her enough so that she can kind of go off the deep end herself and then just join in with him. But I don't get that from him. There's something that's missing from him that's just not creating this character or working this character well enough for me. But he's basically just trying to keep giving her what she desires so that he can kind of win her over. She asks about Cyprian's whereabouts. He's like, Cyprian's at home. If that's where you want him to be, that's where he is. If he's alive, that's what you want. That's where he is. You're in control here. You have the power. That's kind of what he's doing for all of this. He goes inside her head and sees the moments when she was elated when she was a kid, and there's moments when she was sad and sorrow. There's a fox that ends up dead in some way in one of her visions, and she's super sad that she can't say. And they have a moment where they kiss, and then all of a sudden you see the fox alive again. So the fox that she couldn't save is now saved. And she's kind of happy about that and smiling, like, okay, maybe this is something that I'm good to go with. And it sucks because I think what we're trying to see in this episode is a back and forth, a tug of war of like, will she, won't she? And Rowan, and I think Rowan and Alexandra is doing a good job of playing that. I just don't think she's getting the reciprocation on the other side to sort of make that balance work. After the fox is shown to be alive, we then remove that visage and then we're back into Carlotta's home and we can see Carlotta in a suspended state, um, just hanging above the front entryway. And Lasher's in a chair saying, all right, now, well, you know what you got to do. You got to take her out. He's basically saying you got to kill her. And she's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not you. I'm not going to be your bidding. I'm not going to kill her. And she once again tries to escape the house without doing so. Uh, we then catch back up with Cyprian, where he is in a bad way in his house. He's sitting in his back to his quarters. His sister happens to be there. And the sister sees him and starts freaking out, like, oh my God, what's wrong? You're in a bad way. What's happened? He lets her know that, hey, you're about to see some crazy stuff right now. I'm gonna need you to hide and be quiet. Just don't say a word. But I also want you to know I was at the Mayfair house. This is how this happened. But I need you to just go, duck, quiet, don't say a word. And then Talamasca show up to heal him. And they do so. They do this whole incantation spirit thing, and basically you spiritually see she accepts this wound onto her and then takes the knife out of her, and that sort of is what expels this from Cyprian. It's a pretty cool sequence, and his sister sees all of it. In this, Carlotta's sister, Rowan's other aunt, who has clearly been kept around based on a spell. Like she wasn't actually present. There's a spell that was keeping her there. And now that Carlotta's in sort of a weakened state, that's starting to wear off. But she can still interact with Rowan. And Rowan goes up to see her and says, hey, what's going on? Like, I can stop this. I think I can save you. But she's saying, I need you to kind of direct me or tell me what I need to do or what it is you want me to do to sort of fix all of this. She shows her a spot where there's a spell book, an exorcism book, and then she shows her a spot where, like, hey, this is where you want to get the ingredients for this book. It's in the basement where she locked Delphine before. But she goes down the stairs to the basement and tries to find like the ingredients, the sage, and all that stuff to kind of perform this spell. It's funny. Lasher does say a pretty funny one: the greens aren't gonna help. What are we doing? But then she gets locked in the basement locks, and she sees Delphine's body bloody, and this is at the hands of Carlotta. Lasher tells her like Carlotta did this. That she's the one responsible for all of this. Doors are locked, and she tries to go back upstairs, like unlock the door, and that's when Lasher says, "You just gotta ask for it. You're in control here. If you want that door open, you just gotta say you want that door open." And she does. And then the door opens, and she's kind of like, "Look, I know what you're doing. You're trying to get me to believe that I opened that door when we all know that you're doing this." This is sort of again in better hands from Lasher. You could see that tug of war a little bit more. For me, it read clear as day, like, oh, that's what's happening. But also, she is on her way to having power. He wants her to start doing things the mucky way, the dirty way, so he can get a little bit more control of her. That's why he says at the end of the last episode, she's mine now. This is his way of sort of saying she's playing the game and she is mine. She then says, look, I want Carlotta arrested and in jail. I'm going to call the police, let her rot there, but I'm not going to be responsible for killing her. I want her down now. And Carlotta is released from suspension. She drops to the ground, and Lasher sort of disappears. It's at that point that Rowan kind of is like, hey, Carlotta, we got to call the police. I don't want to harm you. And Carlotta's like, I know, you're a good girl. I get it. There's a way out, and I can get you that way out. And we know what this is. Second she starts heading up those stairs, I immediately get in like, oh yeah, because we've heard about the previous Mayfair woman, Anthony, who committed suicide off the balcony. In lines, we can see now that this is sort of how this happened. Carlotta's planning to take Rowan up there and be like, hey, you're not going to ever be able to control this. He's got you. He's got his arms wrapped around you. You guys are bound together. The only way out of this is for you to jump over that thing. And the plan is Carlotta's planning to just, if she doesn't do it or do it on her own, she's going to push her over. Like that's the end game here. Like, and so this is will they, won't they, will Rowan go through with actually killing Carlotta? But a lot of it is like self-defense. like because Carlotta's planning to kill her. So then we get the images or the sort of side view that we saw the very first couple episodes when Rowan was taking out all those dudes. She goes inside Carlotta and snaps something, and then Carlotta falls and tumbles over the balcony and is dead. Rowan then looks back into the manor and sees Lasher sort of standing there. And he's like, "I didn't." She says, I didn't want this." Lasher disappears and she tries to as she exits. We then get a last shot of Cyprian at home with his sister, kind of explaining Talamasca and that he does work for an agency. She's like, "I already knew you worked for an agency, but so I was like FBI. I didn't realize it was this weird shit you're doing." But she is now concerned for him because he's really to go jump back in. She's like, "I gotta go find this Mayfair girl. I gotta go back to that place." He's like, "No, stay away from them. This is how you wound up in this place. They're dangerous. They're crazy. You should leave that girl and them alone." But he is in love. I think the reason why he was in that loop that entire time is because he does have an affinity and an affection for Rowan. He may not be willing to admit that. Rowan probably doesn't quite reciprocate that because she's just more confused and she sort of says she keeps people at bay. But he is all in on her. And so he's going to do whatever he can to protect her. Be damned if what it does to his personal life or safety. We then see Rowan, this is a cool shot, I'm not gonna lie. In an upside down camera frame, Rowan is leaving the manor, kind of a new woman, if you will. She went in sort of closed eyes, not really knowing the full wealth of her power, and now she's on the other side of that, and she's sort of in this mirror world where the world looks a little different to her now, and she's kind of going out on this new venture as not a fully fleshed, she's not at full strength, but a little bit more in the know of who and what she is capable of, and that could be a little bit more dangerous for everybody around. Again, like I said, a bottle episode. Everything sort of took place in their homes except for the Cyprian scenes. But the whole point of this was to get a little bit more oomph into Rowan's character. We still don't really know what made her prior to all of this, but we get more of the witching side of this, and we get the whole back and forth between her and Lasher. Will he, won't they? Who's in control? Who's not in control? In this sort of power struggle, with a piece of it being like the death of Carlotta. I think they all thought this would be a little stronger than what it is. A lot of it's because Carlotta and Rowan didn't have enough scenes together, enough connection together. So her actually killing her, I felt more like, oh yeah, that's who you're supposed to do because that's how the script reads. I think probably in book form, there's a little bit more of a history or a little bit more connection between the two of them. But again, all of this really falls down to, well, I think Alexandra Daddario is doing a really solid job of portraying what she's supposed to be doing. I think the other half of that seesaw isn't quite living up to what it needs to. And it just makes some of these scenes more perfunctory, like, oh yeah, we have to do this to get to the point, and less, oh god, I can't wait to see next. Like you're not on the edge of your seat, or you're not biting off like, oh man, what could happen next? Because it all feels so routine and like blase. I don't know. I know it just got picked up for season 2, so obviously we're going to continue on. I don't know. I don't think I would watch past this season if something doesn't drastically change in these next few episodes. But that's me. What are you guys thinking about this show so far? What are you guys thinking about this episode of Thrall? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts, we're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.